So when you look through Wisconsin's schedule, there are a lot of tough games. I mean, a lot of tough games. Sometimes when you look at a team's win total on FanDuel and you see 6.5, you think, oh, okay, they could, maybe be an 8 or 9 win team if everything goes really well, but they're probably just, happy to be bowl eligible and whatnot. That doesn't always speak to the caliber of team that a coach is actually dealing with. It might just speak to the schedule that he's got. And that's an important thing to consider when you're looking at these win totals, because not all schedules are created equal. I talked about Virginia Tech's schedule on yesterday's show because their win total recently got bumped from 7.5 to 8.5. The same as NC State's, who people see as kind of a dark horse or maybe not so dark horse ACC title contender. If you gave Wisconsin either of those team schedules, particularly Va-Tech's, would their win total still be 6.5, or would it be a little bit higher? Here's why. They start with Western Michigan, South Dakota. Those are going to be wins. Then they have a marquee game against Alabama. Now, you may be saying, Spencer, you're talking about the most important game on Wisconsin's schedule. It's got to be that game against Alabama, right? Nope, I do not believe so. Remember, recently on this show, I talked with Ryan Herrings of Locked On Badgers about what a good season looks like, what the best season could look like for this Wisconsin team. This is still just year 2 for Luke Fickell. He's got Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback and, a good roster to be sure. But is it one of the best in the Big Ten? Should they expect to be Big Ten title contenders? No, we said their ceiling was 9-3 with this schedule, which is absolutely brutal because, you get your first 3 games at home. You get a couple of tune-ups, and then you get to take on the Crimson Tide. It's year 1 for Kalen DeBoer, but I'm not picking against Alabama in that particular game. I don't have too many selections on individual games of that caliber right now, like Florida-Miami. I don't know who I'd pick right now. Maybe I'd lean towards Miami, but am I making that officially? No. I'm not picking against Alabama in that particular game, even though it is in Madison and Camp Randall is going to be a rockin'. It is going to be rockin' for the Crimson Tide. Then the next week, they have a bye before they go at USC and begin a stretch of 3 road games in their next 4. So they get all this home cooking, but then the averages kind of catch up with them, and they have to go at USC, host Purdue. You better win that Purdue game, at Rutgers and at Northwestern. And here is why I am saying either the Rutgers or the Northwestern game is the key to Wisconsin's season. If they're going to be an 8-win team, they have to win at least one of those games. Between Alabama and USC, you're losing at least one. I think you're probably losing 2. And I haven't even gotten to the back half of their schedule, which has got Penn State at home. It's got Iowa on the road. It's got Oregon at home. It's got Nebraska on the road in consecutive weeks. Consecutive weeks. I don't know how much tougher of a Big Ten schedule you can devise here. Sure, Michigan's not on it, but every other Big Ten title contender is, literally all of them in the odds market. Ohio State is first. They do not have Ohio State, admittedly. I got a little bit over my skis right there. But Oregon is second. You've got Penn State in there. They've got the 3rd or 4th best odds. You've got Iowa in there. That could be a pretty tough game to win because it's in Iowa City. That 4-game stretch, Penn State, at Iowa, Oregon, and at Nebraska, I think you're losing a couple of games there. So the Rutgers and the Northwestern games are key for 2 reasons. Number 1, they're just more winnable than some of the other games on Wisconsin's schedule. That's just a fact. They are among the most winnable games. And number 2, they're not going to be easy. And if you are able to win at least one, let's say they win both of those games on the road, they will have proven to themselves that they should have a sense of belief that they can go away from Camp Randall and win big games. If you win both of those contests in Piscataway and Evanston, which is not going to be an easy feat, by the way. Rutgers should be fighting to be a bowl team. Northwestern, capable of being a bowl team. How many games did Northwestern win last year? This is my favorite Big Ten pop quiz question from a season ago. Not just who led the conference in passing yards. What was Northwestern's record by the time bowl season came to a close? It was 8-5. It was 8-5. Do you remember that? Probably not. Do you look at Northwestern on the schedule and think, oh, that's probably a win? Well, David Braun has a good thing going. We'll see what their follow-up act is. I was pretty impressed with an 8-5 year following a 1-11 campaign. But if Wisconsin goes 3-0 in that stretch against Purdue, at Rutgers, and at Northwestern, how good do they have to be feeling? They should feel ecstatic because they'll have no more than 2 losses at that point. If they manage to beat Alabama or USC, they're certainly in the top 25. But if they get through those first 7 games and they're sitting at 5-2, I think Wisconsin would be doing great. And suddenly, the homecoming game against Penn State on October 26th, suddenly that is a big, big time football game because you'd only have 1 conference loss in that stretch. Because Alabama's a non-conference. USC, that's a member of the Big Ten. Who doesn't remember the days growing up with USC as a Big Ten team? That's what everybody's growing up in now because that's what realignment has given us. But that stretch, I think they'll be able to beat Purdue at home. I don't have too many qualms about that. But at Rutgers, at Northwestern, consecutive weeks, they don't look that hard on paper. Their logos don't instill a lot of fear. But both of those games are going to be against teams that were in bowl games a season ago and expect to be in that same sort of discussion again this year. So that is why that stretch, and I said either of these games, I'm combining it to both. I'm altering the take mid-recording here because I'm realizing that that makes the most sense. Those 2 games, I can see a world in which Wisconsin loses both of those games, in which case they could be in store for a 4 or 5 win season because the back half gets insanely tough. But there is something to be said, even though you only play a college football game once a week, about the momentum that you generate and what a win does and how you're feeling and what happens here, how you win this game there, and what it does to a locker room. How good is that locker room going to feel if they go all the way to Piscataway and then they go down to Evanston and they win in back-to-back weeks following a win against Purdue? If they've got a win against USC already, holy smokes, they're going to be really filling themselves up there in Madison. But if they go through that 3-game stretch and win all 3 and carry that into the Penn State game, that Penn State team is good. They're playoff caliber. But it's at home. Before the 4th quarter starts, they're going to be jumping around. And that football team will be playing with a supreme level of confidence. This will probably come down to how Tyler Van Dyke is able to mesh with Luke Fickell's system coming over from Miami in the offseason. That's going to be a big part of what defines this Wisconsin team, as is often the case. What do they get from the quarterback position? When they get high-level quarterback play, Wisconsin's usually a high-level team. That's been the standard no matter who the head coach has been. Brett Bielema, Paul Chryst, now Luke Fickell. That Penn State game, that's a big circle game because then they have to go at Iowa, host Oregon, at Nebraska. Wisconsin could go 0-4 in that stretch, or they could go 3-1 in that stretch. It might depend on what they've done the weeks prior that determines how they are able to play on the field, how it is able to translate. Those 3 games, that's a big stretch. But Rutgers and Northwestern, the most important sequence on Wisconsin's schedule this year. That question came in. If you want me to break down a team's schedule like that about what's the most important game for their season, just let me know. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. This episode is brought to you by our friends at GameTime. GameTime makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You can save up to 60%, which is over half. Just letting that sink in. Buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever you want. They've got their lowest price guarantee, or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.